Prototype is an open-world action game made by Radical Entertainment. You might remember them as the Hulk Ultimate Destruction guys, and that past work shows. Like that game, Prototype is all about having superpowers and wreaking havoc in the city. You play as Alex Mercer, a man who wakes up in the morgue with absolutely no memory of his past life. As a trade-off, he does get some crazy superpowers. We're talking about the kind where he can absorb other living beings and take on their form. Once he busts out of the morgue, he has one singular goal: find out what happened and kill everyone responsible. This isn't the most original premise for a game, but the story actually does take some interesting turns along the way. It's not the standard happy-go-lucky superhero story. Alex isn't really a nice guy. The story isn't told in the best of ways, and some of the cutscenes aren't that great, but it's still something you don't see very often. In terms of the look and feel of the game, Prototype is a very mixed bag. Some of the animations that Alex Mercer has are pretty darn good, but the city itself looks terrible. The draw distance is awful and there's pop-in all over the place. It's actually so bad that it can affect the gameplay. There are 250 collectible orbs to find in Prototype, but you can't see them unless you get right up next to them. It makes this whole collection side quest simply awful. Prototype's look isn't saved by the visual style either. The buildings in this make-believe Manhattan are boxy and ugly, and there are very few landmarks to even let you know that you're in Manhattan. It's clear that the developers were trying something really ambitious with Prototype, but the game suffers because of it. There's so much going on screen that sometimes the visuals lag, and other times the game becomes too chaotic. There are actually so many enemies attacking you at once sometimes that you can find yourself getting juggled around without knowing why or where the attacks are coming from. I would have much preferred a smaller city with better visuals that had a more focused game design. The main draw of Prototype is all the crazy powers at Alex Mercer's disposal. There are a huge number of them, and they can be upgraded early and often. Some of the most fun you'll have in Prototype is picking and choosing which power-ups to go after first and tailoring the guy how you want him to be. It's these powers with the sandbox design that makes Prototype something worth looking at. You can do anything from running up buildings to leaping off the top of them to doing flying elbow drops onto the tanks hundreds of feet down on the streets below. There's a huge number of these powers, and going through all of them and exploring them is what gives Prototype its personality. It's a game that's so eager to please that the developers did run into a few problems. Very few of the missions are specifically built around the cool powers. For instance, check out this move. It's totally sweet. You can fling yourself hundreds of feet forward, but there's no mission that specifically takes advantage of this. What's worse, there are so many powers that you end up getting stupid button combinations. One of the biggest disappointments I had in Prototype was when I unlocked the cannonball move. I really wanted to do a cannonball. This is something that I've always thought was awesome. And to do it, you have to hit the X and B button at the same time. Pick up a controller right now and try to do that. It's ridiculously hard. On the flip side, some of these missions are really fun. My personal favorite of these are the Web of Intrigue missions, where you need to hunt down characters around Manhattan and consume them to learn more of the backstory. The cool part about these is that they continue even into other missions. That means you might be in the middle of an escort mission and see one of these guys walking along on the side of the street. However, a bunch of the other missions are tedious, and some of them suffer from cookie-cutter design. If you've played another open-world action game before, you've probably seen a lot of these missions in the past. Prototype is a game that tries to do way more than it can handle. As a result, it has a lot of good ideas that just seem half-finished. The game doesn't seem complete. It probably sounded like the coolest game ever on paper, but it's not so much in practice. I mean, you get a lot of cool powers, but you never really feel like a badass per se. It still has some good missions and powers, it just needed more polish. For the full written review, head over to IGN.com.